I'm PC Stuart Toogood from Erdington Police Station in Birmingham, and I basically created the Offender to Rehab program, which in a nutshell is when we concentrate on those prolific retail offenders that sadly seem to be ignored, really, who are in severe heroin and crack cocaine addiction, and we engage them over the period of weeks and look to put them into rehab. And of course, if they can get well, then their lives improve, and of course, crime is prevented. So that's it in a nutshell. But in a moment, I'm going to show you a video, but a short video, which I hope you'll enjoy. But I'm going to talk to you after that about how I met Bev Hardman in particular, who's been a fantastic support of our programme, and how people like Bev have helped us immensely, really, in what we try to achieve. And I certainly recommend others to use, people with experience, lived experience. I'm also going to talk about some cost savings we've had and introduce you to. I was planning on introducing you to a guy called Mike and Caroline. I think we've only got Mike, who's brilliant. I think Caroline's having some technical issues getting on. But I hope you enjoy the next few minutes. So if I can play the video, Jan. And what I would just say is that the 5 people that are featured have all been through our Offender to Rehab program. Thank you. If you can play it then, Jan. Thank you. Right. Can you still all hear me okay?
Yes,
yeah, all good.
Right, thank you. Yes, I think pictures and videos, they speak 1,000 words, don't they? And I wanted to show you that because all 5 of those have been in our programme, as I mentioned. All 5 of those had incredibly chaotic lives, and at least 2 from the group that you saw there, Caroline and Michael, Bev Hardman, in helping us to engage them along the way. And I'm really proud of all 5 and the others, but particularly those 5. And I will say straight away that they are all now experts by experience themselves. They all help me and others daily, and they're all proper support workers in the rehabs. So, and a tremendous turnaround. And the bottom line is they were all written off, you know. So it's a very pleasing story. So, so how did I meet Bev Hardman then? Well, I met Bev Hardman at Tally-Ho Police Training Centre, and she was doing a talk to officers. And I think that was because generally, as a rule of thumb, police training around addiction is very poor indeed. We don't understand it. The regular officers out there and the senior officers, in my view, don't really understand it and how powerful it is. And that's why we set up our program, to do something about it. But Bev was great. I approached her afterwards. I said, look, I'm thinking about trying to do this and getting people into rehab. And she met for several meetings. And the knowledge she passed on to me was amazing. You know, told me exactly how they think, feel, the issues they have. And she accompanied me on lots of meetings with clients. She's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm going basically also she's I'm aware that she's done reach out days with police teams and on high streets, tackling rough sleepers as well, encouraging people to seek help with us. And she was able to sit down and talk to people, and you know, and as somebody who's actually been there, you know, and of course there's always a barrier between police and people. So in most cases, Bev was able to overcome that barrier and to bridge that barrier. Sorry. She'd also accompany people with us to assessment centres and rehabs. And she's also worked with DA offenders, I'm aware of, across our area, and with vulnerable women in particular. And she's just been and done school input, so she really has been fantastic and a great help. So can I have slide 3? This is it, yeah, Michael and Caroline. So Michael, are you on this chat with us at the moment?
I am indeed, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Mike. I don't know whether people can see you, but folks, I'd like to introduce you to Michael. Michael was on that slide, that video that we just saw, and Michael's well used to telling his story now, so I'm literally going to hand over to Mike to tell his story, because it's a real story. And Mike, perhaps if I can hand over to you then to tell it, and perhaps start from the sort of the beginning, you know, with sort of Edison High Street area and how you met me, Bev, and that kind of thing. You happy to do that?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name's Michael, as Stuart said. Yeah, so I'll just go back to when I first met Stuart and Bev. So it was Bev I first met back in, I think it was 2019. I think I'd been out of prison for about 8 months at the time. Back on the streets again. At this point, I'd probably been sleeping rough for about 4 years, and on and off, like, through prison. And Bev come up to me, and you know what? Very lovely lady, but she was always getting in my way. That was the truth. You know, my addiction was very powerful at the time, and even as much as she wanted to help me, I just didn't want to know. But you know, she planted that seed in my head that, you know, there's someone out there that could help me, and I was having lots of trouble on Ernest High Street with the police and stuff like that. I'd gone away from shoplifting as my ways and means of making money. I went to actually begging outside of local retailers, and the police were constantly coming up to me and telling me that there's this police officer that could help me and all this. And I thought, I don't want it. I don't want to know. You know, at that time I wasn't ready to get better, to get well. To be honest with you, I didn't know how to get well. And then I can always remember the day that I met Stuart. I was actually sat outside of a local retailer begging, and I could see this bloke keep staring at me. And I looked at him and I thought, he's a police officer. What does he want? Like, what is he doing? Am I wanted or something like that? And he come up and he introduced himself as Stuart Toogood. And he asked me if I was Michael, and I says no. I says, it ain't me. Don't know who he is. All of this lot. But you know what? He planted that seed in my head that there was someone out there, whether he was a police officer or not. As he says, there's a stigma between rough sleepers, shoplifters, whatever you want to call us, you know, and the police. And I was very, very ill at this time when he come up to me. Very, very ill. I was an IV user for crack and heroin for some years, and at that time, I got deep vein thrombosis in one of my legs from injecting, and also an abscess, which was putting a big strain on my health. But Stuart kept coming up to me. He kept getting the other local officers to come up to me to say, come on, just let us help you. And my pride got in the way, you know, because he was a police officer. I didn't want to go to the police station, be seen going to the police station and start being called a grass, basically, you know. And then 2020 come, COVID hit, and that's when my health really spiraled downhill. I couldn't barely walk. The lad I was with, God bless him, he actually passed away after I went into treatment. But the lad I was with, he had sepsis as well. And, you know, we was a mess. And I ended up falling asleep behind some bins. And woke up the next morning, I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. It took about 3 hours for someone to find me. And when they did, they took me into hospital. And I tell you what, I as much as they were telling me that, you know, that you're going to lose your leg, you're going to die if you don't hurry up and do something about it, you know, they didn't give me till Christmas, which was only 3 months away. And, you know, I didn't want to leave that hospital because I knew what I was going back to. I knew I was going back to the street. I knew I was going back to using drugs. At this point, I'd had enough. And all that kept niggling in the back of my head was Stuart, you know, kept saying to me, "Help, you can help, I can help you, I can help you." And I bit the bullet and I went and seen him. And I tell you now, it was the best thing I ever done. It wasn't what I expected, because I was expecting to go there and Stuart start quizzing me about who I was getting my drugs off, all of this. But he never asked me one of them questions, not once. All he wanted to do was put his hand out and help me. Which you know, I'm grateful for what he's done. And Bev, you know, I've seen Bev as I've been in recovery now, and it's good to see her on the other side. And you know, as much as I didn't want her around me, you know, she was always in the back of my head, the same as Stuart was. And I'm very grateful for these people that do this. And as Stuart says, I'm now in recovery. I'm now just over 18 months clean. I'm now training to be a fully qualified drug and alcohol support worker by getting my level 3 MVQ. So yeah, life is a lot different today, and it's all thanks to Stuart and Bev. So yeah, thanks, Stu.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thank you very much, and of course down to your hard work. You know, but I can remember those conversations with Bev, because she used to come on the reach out days with us on Earlys and High Street. We used to phone her up. Bev, can you help us? And Bev, can you remember them?
I certainly can, Stu.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether you want to throw a quick perspective in of your dealings with young Michael.
Yeah, we did have quite a few conversations, but the thing is, and Michael will be greatly aware of this now, it's you can't BS somebody who's been there, and Michael started to realise that, because I used to say things and I'd say things to him back, and he'd just laugh, because he knew I could see straight through it. It was so transparent. But it's so it's brilliant. It does my, it's like I get goosebumps every time I see that video. So obviously, you know, I've helped to support Michael. I took Caroline for her assessment to rehab, and it's just so amazing to see people getting their life back, you know, living lovely lives. It's, you know, it makes my job worth it. I mean, we do see some, you know, heartbreak and, you know, everything else, but, you know, Michael, you know, I'm so happy for you and proud of you. It's lovely to see you sat there today. It's amazing.
It certainly is, and again, you know, personally, thank you, Bev, because I started off by saying that, you know, how you've helped us, but like I said, the training in the police was very poor, and is poor around this area, and everything I learned, certainly in those first sort of few months, was from you, and then that grew as I started to help people myself, and then I've learned from them. But you were really, really important in that, and my understanding of it. And like I say, you took Caroline with me to rehabs, and those conversations you'd have, those little conversations in the car, they're all important. and this is the value that somebody like yourself, and now Michael, Darren, Paul, and the others, Caroline, they all do as well. They all help now going forward, which is fantastic. So thank you as well.
Thank you, Stuart.
So no, thank you genuinely. And Caroline, she's had some technical difficulties getting on, but Caroline was the lady in the video. I'll tell you briefly about her. She's just the most amazing person. She's approaching 4 years in recovery, clean, as they say. And she basically, I got some funding because there was very little funding around about 4 years ago. Got some funding, started this program, sent her to rehab, and she absolutely blossomed. And you know, she was given 12 months to live because she had a heart was a damaged valve, and that was also drug usage and stuff like that. And she just excelled and blossomed in rehab and then the NA world. And now she's like Michael, she's a fully fledged support worker at a rehab with a level 3 qualification. She's just amazing. And again, she helps us as well. And it just shows you, I mean, the bottom line is she would be dead. It's as simple as that. She would be dead. And now to see her, like Michael and others, passing on their knowledge is just amazing. It's amazing. And I find that they are just the most fantastic people. You know, it's just drugs got in the way. You take the drugs away, then you have the fantastic person. And that's certainly what I learned, and that's what I want with the police officers, to be quite frank, to understand. But if we can go to the next slide a sec, if that's okay, yeah. To give you an idea of cost savings that I mentioned, if you take Caroline, for example, most of the people that I work with use about £1,000 of heroin and crack a week. Some of you may not be surprised by that. Some of you may be surprised, but that is genuinely the amount that these typical people are using. And of course, they're getting that money from all kinds of ways: retail crime, other crime, sex work, you know, all that kind of things thrown in. But if you look at Caroline, for example, the 44 months that she's been in recovery, 176 weeks times £1,000, that's £176,000 that's not been given to drug dealers, these people that are driving around in cars on our streets in places like Erdington. Now that's having an effect. We're hitting them in the pocket. You know, we know that it's linked to organised crime and violence and shootings and all the rest of it. So that is hitting them in the pocket. That's a real saving and a good thing to be doing. And we've prevented, therefore, if you work on the basis of stolen property being sold, you know, stolen from the shop and then sold on the street at least a third of the value, sometimes for pennies, then you do the calculation, and that's like over £500,000 of stolen property that's been prevented. Now, one of the reasons we do our program is also because we care about retailers, you know, and threats and violence to shop workers is very prevalent. So we're minimising the risk to shop workers as well. You know, so that gives you an idea of some, you know, the huge amounts of money that potentially we're not putting in the drugs market, and we're saving retailers. And that's just Caroline. So you add Michael and Darren and Paul and Siobhan and all these other people. It's astronomical, the savings from just investing time in you know, in such people, and they're worth it as well. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, I'm going to play you again another short video, which I hope you'll like. Yeah, so that was the last video. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and you know a little bit more about our program now, and about how people, Bev helped us, and how the people you've seen in the video are now helping us as well. It really is invaluable experience and support for organisations like us. And like I said, I'd just like to thank you again, Bev. Thanks, Mike. And I think it's a case of any questions now. If anyone would
Yes,
like to ask a question,
please.
now's your
Thank you
chance.
all. Thank you all so much for that. That was excellent. There's been lots of positive comments in the chat, particularly about Michael's story. Lots of praise and people grateful for you sharing it, Michael. So thank you. And Janaea Alcock has said she likes the statement that was made earlier. The system is made of people. So when the system goes against the grain and the stereotype, when it removes the power plays, as Stuart did, leveling with people and not above them, the result is life-changing, as witnessed here. I think that's really, really well put. If anybody else has any questions, please put your hand up or type it in the chat. Stuart, I was just wondering if you could tell us if there's funding for this program to continue or to grow, and sort of how many places in rehab, that type of thing, if you've got a little bit more information about the future.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to say at the moment, we're in a pilot phase at the moment, because this basically went for me sort of doing it, starting it in Erdington, and then it sort of, people saw the value of it through some of the, like, Michaels of the world and Carolines of the world. So we expanded it on a pilot basis across Birmingham. So we have 4 police officers, including myself now, dedicated to this role. So we're all out there actively now engaging with people. I haven't got the figures at the top of my head, but we put several people into rehab, and we're working with others as we speak, and we are seeing some fantastic results. Funding wise, we get our funding 2 ways really. We get it from retail community, which basically I went to retailers and I said, look, help us to help you. And I think they looked at me with blank faces at first, saying, hold on a minute, you're asking us to give us money to help people that are stealing from us. Well, yes, we need to do something. But they've come on board, and some of the big companies like your Sainsbury's and your B&Q's, Mighty, lots of others are now invest with us. And also we got it from the PCC, who have been fantastic support as well, I must say. And they gave us an amount of money through the Proceeds of Crime Act. So the pilot will probably, it's technically supposed to finish or will be finally evaluated around July. I think it'll be pushed back to probably the end of the year. And then we shall see. But I think in one way or another, we will be continuing this, in some shape or form, because we are still seeing good results. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Yeah, we certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Earl has his hand up. Earl, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, morning all. Thank you for that, all of you. I was just thinking, because in the work that I do, we come across individuals as described in Erdington High Street and wherever. And if we meet these individuals in other parts of the city that yourself or your officers might not have come across, is there a way that we can refer them over to you?
Yeah, there is. The criteria for our pilot, the human side of me would help anybody, but we are governed by, funding criteria, and we are, so they must have a retail crime footprint, because that's really the angle that we're coming at, and if you come across somebody in the Birmingham area that is committing retail crime, then and is an addiction, then you can absolutely contact us. We have got an email account that perhaps I can pass on to Jan and it's on the slides actually, and you just email us or email me, and we can have a chat from there. But if we can help, we will help.
That's great. Thank you for that. I was just wondering, I'm looking through the chat and mostly it's comments and not questions, but thank you for all your comments. I was just wondering, Bev, if you could talk for a couple of minutes just about the training that you delivered to officers at Tally Ho, because for me personally, I think that's been really instrumental in reaching so many different stations and officers throughout the city. And we've really seen the impact of that, them learning at the very early stage about how to interact with people that are facing multiple disadvantage. Would you mind just giving us a little bit about what you did and how that went?
Yeah. So my very first day employed on BCFT, I was actually in Lloyd House giving a talk to quite a large group of officers, and we were supporting them to deliver their offender management training. And because that was so impactful, they asked us back to support them with the delivery of their mental health training to response and neighbourhood teams. So basically, as Stuart says, that's where he heard my journey. And, I shared my journey. I didn't sugarcoat it. It was raw. I gave them all the nitty gritty, things that I've experienced. And it grew from them, like you say, Sian, that I ended up getting lots of emails, lots of calls. We ended up working with 8 police stations. I've worked with around 40 odd different officers from different areas. But the reason behind those talks, my involvement was, and it did have a huge impact, was to change perceptions, to change officers' perceptions, and to encourage them to adopt a different style of approach when supporting people what were experiencing multiple disadvantage. And at the end, I used to, I'd give them opportunity to ask questions. And one of the questions that I did get asked was, well, isn't it a choice? And I'd say, well, who wakes up one morning and says, I want to be a cracker, I want to smoke crack, use heroin, and I want to go do whatever to get money. And I didn't have any other choice, or if I did have a choice, it had been taken away or denied from me because I'd become too complex to for services to support. But I ended on this. It's like, after many years in recovery, I do have a choice today because I didn't have the tools back then. So I do have a choice. I have got a toolbox. But yeah, so impactful. Officers learned so much. And on those journeys, to a client's home in the police car, that was every little bit of time. It wasn't wasted. That was an opportunity to have them conversations, for them to ask me, about me and my thoughts, and just gain more knowledge and understanding of addiction.
Thank you, Bev. That's really useful. Thank you for sharing that. Just in the chat, we've got Janaea asked Stuart. I'm just going to scroll back up again. Janaea asked Stuart if there's work going on with prisons resettlement to possibly tap into support earlier before released onto the streets, like Michael, with a lack of prospects and hope. And Stuart replied that they do link in with the prisons. For example, Andy Shelton from Shelter, who does work in HMP Birmingham. But this is something that they can definitely grow going forward. And I think from my perspective, I would definitely say anything that can be done to train officers at the earliest stage in what to expect, in how to deal with people, in how to reach out to services on behalf of people and link them up, such as the work that Bev's been doing, and Bev's role comes to an end in June. Is invaluable in my opinion. So hopefully that will continue in some way in the future and be recognised for the value that it had. Michael, Stuart, do you want to elaborate on the rehab process?
If I try and keep it as brief as I can.
Thank you.
Like I say, we basically engage with those people below the line of normal engagement, the ones that don't really go to the drug and alcohol services. And so we obviously pick those up and work with that kind of person. So we don't ask or expect a lot of them. Do you know what I mean? So I don't say, I expect you to stop using drugs for 2 weeks to prove to me you want rehab, or I don't want you to stop stealing because, you know, I want you to prove to me. It's just not going to happen. So we start off very basically by meeting. We drink a lot of coffee in coffee shops. You know, we just get to know them, build up that rapport, that trust. And then we've just brought in something that we call prehab groups. So every Wednesday we go to Changes UK in Digbeth, and we use, again, experts by experience, including our own Darren, who's been through the program, and people from the 3 different rehabs, and so that process starts. That's the next stage of the process. So they can address all their fears, anxieties around rehab, what the detox is like, etc., etc. And then they do that for a few weeks. We continue then to see them regularly and talk to them regularly on the phones, etc. And then at such a time when we jointly feel that the time's right, and it's only a matter of weeks, it doesn't last forever, we then get them assessed at a rehab, and then look for an admission date, and then they go into rehab, and that's the start then of that part of their journey. I mean, day to day, it's very structured in the rehab. You know, it's up early. You know, Michael's the best one to tell you, so interject if you need to, Mike. But it's basically up early. You know, showers and breakfast, and then it's your group work throughout the day, isn't it? Would you like to just say very briefly, Mike, what that day is?
So obviously, you know, when we're in active addiction, the thing we lack in is routine, structure, and discipline. We have no routine, we have no structure, we definitely don't have any discipline in addiction. So, you know, for going into rehab, it's about learning them processes again. You know, so you are, you know, as Stuart just mentioned, then you are up at 7 o'clock on the dot every morning. You know, you come down for your breakfast, and then, you know, so I don't want to go too much into the NA fellowship, but in the NA fellowship, you know, we're taught and suggested to hand things over to a higher power, and that's what you do. You know, you some people run away when they hear the word God, like I did to start with, but it's not. You know, it's not God as it's whatever your God you interpret. You know, but no, as Stuart says, then you know, you do your groups through the day, and they are quite vigorous groups. They are quite heavy groups to do, but it's what we need, you know. So yeah, you know, obviously if you're detoxing like I was, you have your medication before you do them groups, and yeah, so you everything is on a planner every day in a rehab centre. You know, the timetable never changes. There's never a day off. Even Christmas Day, you're up. You're still doing your same things. You know, and it puts us in that routine again. I'm still in that routine, even though I've been out of treatment now for well over a year. Do you know what I mean? I still do the same things as what they taught me, and it's good. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Thank you very much for that. We've probably missed a couple of questions. Any that we've missed, we'll come back to either later if we get a gap, or we're in the mail out that we'll send out afterwards with additional questions answered. But thank you all, Bev, Stuart and Michael, so much for that presentation. That was excellent.